She has never released a song, never acted in a film, never signed a record deal. She has brought down careers, shattered relationships, and built a $1 million brand all from a phone. What I'm about to show you is one of the wildest, most calculated stories in hip-hop history, and nobody has been telling it the right way. January 2nd, 2026. New Year's just hit. The world is celebrating. Then out of nowhere, a video drops on Instagram that breaks the entire internet. In the clip, a woman is lying in a hotel bed. She slowly pans the camera. There, asleep next to her, is one of the most famous rappers alive. She looks directly into the camera, flashes a middle finger at the sleeping man, and captions it, "Made a tape last night." The internet explodes. Because that sleeping man, that's Offset. The same Offset who was in the middle of a messy, very public divorce from Cardi B. The same Offset whose legal team years earlier called this exact same woman a criminal. The same woman they sent a cease and desist letter to. The same woman they accused of a $50,000 extortion plot. Her name is Celenia Powl, and she has been running this version after version, rapper after rapper, since 2017. Beyond that, here is what most people do not understand about her story. This is not just gossip. This is not just messy drama. What Celenia Powl built over nearly a decade is a system, a calculated, deliberate operation that turned proximity to famous men into a multi-million-dollar personal brand. The men she targeted, some of the biggest names in hip-hop, walked right into it every single time. Today we are breaking it all down. Every rapper, every claim, every verified receipt, every time she got caught lying, and every time she somehow came back stronger than before. Stay locked in, because the Offset situation, that is not even close to the craziest part of this story. Let's get into it. Before we go any further, you need to understand who Celenia Powl actually is, because the media has been framing this story wrong for years. Born June 13, 1995 in Denver, Colorado, she is not from the industry. She did not grow up with connections to hip-hop in any professional capacity. No record deal, no management, no publicist, no agent. What she had was a phone, an uncanny understanding of how attention works in the digital age, and zero visible fear of consequences. She started calling herself the Black Widow. That name was not random. A black widow lures its target in, then uses it for its own survival. That is the template she has operated on from day one. By 2023, she had over 3.3 million followers on Instagram alone. She runs an active OnlyFans account. She has appeared on some of the biggest gossip platforms in hip-hop. No Jumper, Vlad TV, DJ Academic Stream, Hollywood Unlocked. She has been the subject of cease and desist letters, a court-ordered restraining order, multiple lawsuits, and public denials from A-list artists across nearly a decade. And on top of this, she is still here, still posting, still going viral, still naming names. The question that keeps coming up is how. How does a woman with no traditional talent, no industry backing, and a well-documented history of fabricating at least one major claim maintain millions of followers and stay relevant for nearly a decade? The answer is the system. To understand the system, we gotta go back to the very beginning. Let's rewind to 2017. Hip-hop is at one of its most commercially dominant periods in history. Migos is everywhere. Bad and Bougé has taken over the culture entirely. Offset is not just a rapper, he is a celebrity. He and Cardi B are the power couple of the moment, their relationship playing out publicly for millions of fans in real time. It is in this specific environment that Celenia Powl makes her first major move. Now understand the context here. Powl was not the first woman to seek proximity to famous men. Groupie culture in hip-hop is as old as hip-hop itself. What made Powl genuinely different, what made her unprecedented, is that she did not just seek the proximity. She documented it, she weaponized it, she built an income stream out of it. Her model, broken down to its core, worked like this. Get access, create content, post publicly, appear on platforms, grow the following, monetize that following through OnlyFans and media appearances, then repeat. The controversy was not a side effect of what she did. The controversy was the product itself. She understood something that most people in her position never figure out, that in the digital age, being talked about is more valuable than being respected. She chose the former deliberately, every single time. The first major product she launched was Offset. Equally important to note before we get to that full saga, Offset was not even her first attempt. Powl has herself publicly admitted that the first celebrity pregnancy she ever faked was with rapper Fetty Wap. She said that, on record, which tells you everything about the mindset she was operating with from the very beginning. This was not impulsive behavior born out of emotion or poor judgment in a single moment. This was a tested, refined strategy that she had already run once before she ever became nationally known. Fetty Wap, the blueprint. Fetty Wap was the trial run. The late 2010s were his peak commercial moment. Trap Queen had made him one of the most recognizable voices in hip-hop, and he had a complicated personal life that was already attracting public attention. Powl moved into that space, made her claims, and when the story ran its course, she moved on. No major legal consequence, no career-ending fallout, just attention, which converted into followers, which converted into income. She learned from that run, she refined the approach, and then she scaled it. Chief Keef, early target. Chief Keef was also among her early documented targets. During a tell-all interview with blogger Tasha K, Powl claimed she had an encounter with Keef and went as far as alleging he gave her an STI, a claim that carries serious implications for anyone's reputation. Keef did not publicly respond. The story spread across hip-hop blogs instantly, regardless of any confirmation. The absence of a response from Keef's side was itself revealing. Denying Powell's claims publicly meant engaging with her, giving her more oxygen, more attention, more content to react to. Staying silent meant the story circulated unchallenged. There was no clean option. That dynamic, where silence and response both served her interests, would become a recurring feature of her entire career. Waka Flocka Flame, the restraining order. Then came Waka Flocka Flame. This one escalated well beyond screenshots and Instagram stories. Waka Flocka reportedly pursued legal action, obtaining a restraining order against Powl directly, a court-ordered restraining order. That is how serious things had gotten before most people nationally even knew her name. Think about what a restraining order actually represents in this context. It means the situation had escalated to a point where a legal intervention was considered necessary to establish physical and communicative boundaries. It means attorneys were involved, it means paperwork was filed, a judge reviewed the situation, and an order was granted. That is not a social media beef. That is a documented legal matter. On top of this, Waka Flocka getting a restraining order did not generate the kind of cultural conversation it probably should have. It became a footnote in Powell's story rather than a headline of its own. That tells you something about how the media ecosystem prioritized sensational claims over documented legal facts. She was already constructing her reputation in the underground gossip ecosystem of hip-hop long before the mainstream caught on. Then 2017 arrived. Offset made her famous, and nothing was the same after that. Here is where things start getting wild, for real. The Offset pregnancy saga, 2017, and it is late 2017. Offset and Cardi B are not yet married, though they are together and very public about it. Cardi is on the rise. Bodak Yellow has made her one of the biggest artists in the world. Then Celenia Powl drops a bomb. She claims she is pregnant with Offset's baby. Let me be clear about what this moment actually was, because it matters for everything that came after. This was not a rumor. This was not a sub-tweet. Powl came out publicly, named Offset specifically, and claimed he had gotten her pregnant while he was in a committed relationship with one of the most talked about women in hip-hop. The internet went absolutely insane. Offset's team moved fast. His legal representative sent Powl a cease and desist letter and publicly called the pregnancy claim what they characterized it as a $50,000 extortion attempt. They were saying, directly on the record, that Powl was using a fabricated pregnancy to extract $50,000 from a famous rapper. Powl did not back down. Not immediately. She kept posting. She posted what she claimed was a paternity test. She uploaded ultrasound images. She kept the story alive through months of sustained public pressure, through 2017 and well into 2018, during which time Cardi B was actually pregnant with Offset's real child, Culture. Think about that timeline carefully. Cardi B is navigating a real, vulnerable public pregnancy, while this woman is simultaneously running a fabricated pregnancy story about her partner. The emotional weight of that, regardless of what Offset may or may not have done, was real for the people living it. Cardi responded publicly and pushed back on the claims directly. The hip-hop internet was split. Some believed Powl, many did not. Either way, Powl was now a household name in hip-hop gossip culture. She had exactly what she came for. Then came the confession, the admission. 2018. During an appearance on DJ Academic's Twitch stream, Celenia Powl admitted it. All of it. There was no baby. She had fabricated the entire pregnancy. Her exact words, delivered with a smirk, Once again, there's no baby. Get over it. I was laughing at you. I didn't give a fuck. She then attempted an apology to Cardi B, struggling to correctly pronounce Cardi's real name, Belcalis Almanzar, while academics pushed her to be sincere. The apology was, to put it generously, unconvincing. Here is what most people miss when they talk about this moment. Powl losing credibility over the fake pregnancy did not end her career, it accelerated it. Because now she was not just a rumor on blogs, she was a confirmed, documented fixture in hip-hop gossip culture. Platforms wanted her. Controversy in the attention economy functions as currency regardless of whether it reads as positive or negative. She even uploaded a YouTube video titled, "Why I Lied About Being Pregnant with Offset's Baby," converting her own confession directly into monetizable content. That is the system working exactly as designed. Most people would be destroyed by a public admission of that scale. She turned it into a YouTube upload. Snoop Dogg, 2018. Fresh off the Offset wave, Powl aimed higher, much higher. In 2018, she came out with claims about Snoop Dogg, one of the most iconic and beloved figures in the entire history of hip-hop. She posted screenshots, alleged DMs, what she claimed were images from a FaceTime call, and uploaded a detailed storytime video on YouTube walking through the alleged encounter. Her claim was that Snoop had flown her out, they had been intimate, and he later tried to send her money. Snoop Dogg has been married to his wife Shante Broadus since 2008 after being together since high school. The implication of Powell's claim was that one of hip-hop's most enduring love stories was built on private infidelity. Snoop's response was calculated and, honestly, kinda brilliant. He did not directly engage with Powl by name. In contrast, he announced a new TV project called Clout Chasers, a show that he said would expose the truth behind people trying to get their 15 minutes of fame. He released a formal definition as part of the promo: a person who strategically associates themselves with the success of a popular person to gain fame and attention. This personality disorder is often referred to as riding the wave without concern for damage or integrity. The message was unmistakably clear without being explicit. It reframed the entire conversation from "Did Snoop cheat?" to "Is this woman a clout chaser?" The show itself was never released. The announcement alone shifted public opinion enough to accomplish the goal. Shortly afterward, Powl began periodically reigniting the story, reposting screenshots and referencing the original allegations during subsequent controversies. Snoop has not publicly named her since. Drake, the one who saw her coming. In January 2021, Powl extended her reach toward the biggest name in hip-hop. She released what she claimed were direct messages with Drake, suggesting some form of connection between them. Drake shut it down in the chat itself. His alleged response was short and surgical. "Def never gave you my number. I know who you are. I want no parts." No extended engagement, no platform given, no confirmation or denial that required further public statement. Drake understood exactly who Powl was and what getting tangled with her would cost. He did not take the bait, and that restraint kept him entirely out of her story. That moment is instructive for a different reason than most people recognize. It reveals that by 2021, Powell's reputation was so established that being associated with her, even in a denial, was considered damaging enough to avoid entirely. You do not send that kind of message unless you are acutely aware of what her presence in any story means. A photo surfaced appearing to show Powl in bed with Tekashi 6ix9ine. Hip-hop reacted immediately. The story that emerged, though, was that the photo was reportedly staged, created deliberately for content purposes by both parties. That detail matters enormously. By this point, Powell's infamy was so firmly established that even staging content with her was treated as a viable viral strategy by someone else. She had become a tool that others could leverage for attention, not only someone using others. The dynamic had evolved considerably from where it started in 2017. O'Shea Jackson Jr., Ice Cube's son. Powl claimed an encounter with O'Shea Jackson Jr., known widely for portraying his father Ice Cube in Straight Outta Compton. Jackson's response was swift and flat. He denied the allegations publicly via Twitter, stating he had never even met her. Full stop. No elaboration. No extended public back and forth, just a clean denial and an exit from the conversation. That response strategy, brief, firm, and refusing further engagement, is something that more of her targets eventually learned. The ones who engaged extensively with her claims gave those claims more life. The ones who denied and moved on fared better in the court of public opinion. NLE Choppa, the most serious claim. In 2020, Powl made what is arguably the most ethically and legally serious allegation of her entire career. During an interview with Hollywood Unlocked, she claimed she had been intimate with rapper NLE Choppa, and that at the time of the encounter he was a minor, a teenager. She stated she only learned his age after the fact. NLE Choppa did not respond publicly. The claim ignited significant debate regardless, not just about Powell's behavior, but about accountability, age verification, and predatory conduct more broadly. The fact that Powl volunteered this information publicly, apparently without weighing the legal and ethical gravity of what she was saying, reveals a great deal about how she calculates risk versus attention. By 2024, Celenia Powl had been in the public eye for nearly 8 years. She had survived fake pregnancy confessions, restraining orders, cease and desist letters, and flat public denials from some of the biggest names in entertainment. Most figures in her position would have faded out long before. Powl came back louder. Lil Meech, September 2025. On September 21st, 2025, Powl posted to her Instagram stories claiming she and Demetrius Lil Meech, Flannery, son of notorious drug kingpin Big Meech and star of the Star series Black Mafia family, had been in a relationship in 2023 that Meech was now publicly denying. She backed the claims with screenshots, with photos. Then she released audio. Private audio of a man identified as Lil Meech, begging her to delete her posts. The voice pleads, "I'm begging you, please delete this stuff. This is my reputation, bro. I apologize for saying what I said to you. Celenia, I said that to get the post deleted. That's not how I tried to make you seem. I apologize for that." This moment was different from previous Powl controversies in a meaningful way. It included the alleged subject's own voice, apparently confirming both the relationship and an active attempt to suppress information about it. It is the closest thing to independently verifiable evidence she has ever publicly released. Beyond that, Powl did not stop there. She alleged Meech was living rent-free in Floyd Mayweather's Atlanta home. She alleged a repossessed car. She alleged ongoing substance abuse. She pulled his relationship with singer Summer Walker into the conversation, then went further, claiming she also had an encounter with London on Daytrack, the Grammy-nominated producer who is the father of Summer Walker's daughter. The fallout was immediate. The audio accumulated over 500,000 views within hours. Memes spread across every platform. Then 50 Cent entered. He reposted the audio clip with a caption mocking Meech's street credibility directly. "Please, please, please, baby, please stop. This is my reputation. BMF done show over, but y'all street. So get it out the mud." Powl fired back at 50 immediately. "Love you, boo," at 50 Cent. "Should have listened when you said he's a bo." In a single move, she had turned a personal conflict with Lil Meech into a co-signed cultural moment with one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop media. Whether that was planned or improvised, the result was identical. Maximum attention, maximum damage, maximum content. Offset, January 2026, the return. Then came the moment that opened this video. New Year's Day, 2026. Powl posted the bed video with Offset. The man she had built her initial reputation around back in 2017 was back in her orbit. Nearly a decade later, she filmed him sleeping. She gestured at the camera. She captioned it. "Made a tape last night and all you heard was him in the video, LOL. Offset, you sleepy boy." The timing was devastating from a PR standpoint. Offset was already deep in a publicly complicated legal and financial dispute with Cardi B following their divorce. The video dropped directly into that context. Cardi did not comment. Offset said nothing officially. The internet had plenty to say. Some questioned whether the man in the footage was actually Offset. Others questioned Powell's motives. Still others questioned what it said about Offset's judgment, choosing to be in this woman's orbit after everything documented between them since 2017. That last question might be the most important one this entire story raises. The $15,000 threat claim. January 10th, 2026. 8 days after the bed video, Powl escalated further. She posted to her Instagram story, "If anything happens to me, Offset did it. Tired of this grown man threatening me almost every day and got me living in fear cause he owes me $15,000 plus." She released what she claimed was a screen-recorded FaceTime showing Offset making threatening remarks. The voice in the clip says, "Thinks he sweet. The Simas ain't sweet mama." Offset's camp did not issue a formal response. Sources close to him characterized Powell's behavior as clout chasing. No formal legal action was announced in response. Shortly afterward, Powell posted, "I will never futz with a rapper again in life." She has made similar declarations before. Based on a documented 10-year pattern, nobody in the know treated that as a final statement. Now let's talk about what everyone wants to know: the money. How does Celenia Powl actually generate income? And how much of what people say about her financial model is real versus street legend? Journalism has to be precise here because claims circulating online go beyond what the evidence supports. OnlyFans is her primary confirmed income source. She has been on the platform for years, and her subscriber count spikes dramatically each time she goes viral. Given her pattern, controversies spaced deliberately across her career. This does not appear to be coincidental. Every major public conflict drives traffic directly to her page. That is not speculation. That is basic platform economics applied with intention. Podcast and media appearances generate both income and reach. Her appearances on No Jumper, Vlad TV, Hollywood Unlocked, and DJ Academic's various platforms have made her a recurring figure in hip-hop media. These platforms benefit from having her. She brings clicks and engagement. She benefits from their audiences. The relationship is mutually profitable in a way that rarely gets acknowledged publicly by either side. Social media monetization through Instagram and connected platforms provides additional income based on her follower count of over 3.3 million, a number that has grown through controversy rather than despite it. Every time a major media outlet covers her story, every time a rapper responds to her publicly, every time a podcast host mentions her name, that number goes up. The coverage itself is free advertising for her brand. Merchandise and brand deals have also reportedly come into her orbit at various points, though documentation on these is less consistent. What is documented is that she has leveraged her platform into paid promotional content in the past, using her follower count as leverage in the same way any influencer would, regardless of how that following was built. What is alleged but unverified: the claim that she directly extracts money from rappers as structured payment for silence, blackmail, or extortion as a formal, deliberate business model. The only documented instance of a financial allegation between her and an artist is the Offset situation, where his legal team characterized her 2017 pregnancy claim as a $50,000 extortion attempt. That was their characterization. It was never criminally charged, prosecuted, or proven in court. The more recent $15,000 claim in 2026 was framed by Powl herself as a personal debt owed to her, not payment for silence. Moreover, here is the uncomfortable reality the industry rarely says plainly. Her model is only sustainable because famous men keep engaging with her despite knowing her history. By 2025, Powell's reputation was fully established across all of hip-hop. There was no fan, blogger, or industry insider who did not know her name and her pattern. On top of that, men with public profiles, committed relationships, and serious careers kept willingly entering her orbit. That is not a Celenia Powl problem in isolation. That is a much larger conversation about accountability, decision-making, and the culture that surrounds hip-hop celebrity at the highest levels. The question of why these men keep showing up in her story is ultimately more revealing than anything about Powl herself. No cap, the public reaction to Celenia Powl has never been one clean thing. It has always been fractured, contested, and revealing about the culture doing the reacting. Camp 1. She's exposing them. When the Lil Meech audio dropped, its receipt season trended online, used by a significant portion of followers who saw Powl not as a villain but as someone forcing accountability onto men who behave badly in private while projecting clean images publicly. This perspective has legitimate grounding. Several of the men she has discussed were in committed relationships at the time of her alleged encounters. Some of those relationships were actively presented to the public as stable and faithful. The argument from this side is straightforward. She is not the core problem. The men who pursue her while claiming to be committed are the problem. She simply has the audacity and the platform to document it. There is real weight to this argument. Hip-hop culture has a deeply embedded tradition of treating infidelity among successful men as an open secret, something rarely confronted directly, frequently tolerated, and almost never held publicly accountable. The same fans who characterize Powl as a clout chaser often extend complete passes to artists who cheat on their partners in exactly the ways she describes. That double standard is documented, consistent, and worth naming directly. Furthermore, the men in her stories are not naive participants who had no way to see what was coming. By 2020, Powell's pattern was fully established and publicly documented. Any rapper engaging with her from that point forward was making an informed choice. That context matters when assigning responsibility for the consequences. Camp 2. She's a proven liar. The counter-argument is equally grounded in documented fact. She admitted, on camera, publicly with a visible smirk, that she fabricated an entire pregnancy. She used ultrasound images that did not belong to her to sustain a false story across months of public discourse. She put Cardi B through extended emotional turmoil during an actual pregnancy. Turmoil built entirely on a lie she described herself as laughing about while it was happening. Public reactions to her 2018 confession included widespread descriptions of her as a flat-out liar and the biggest clout chaser ever. Many felt that admission permanently invalidated anything she said afterward. O'Shea Jackson Jr. said he never met her. Drake said he never gave her his number. The 6ix9ine photos were reportedly staged. A pattern of unverified and outright false claims gives substantial ammunition to anyone who approaches her allegations with skepticism. In contrast, the fans who defend her on the grounds that she exposes the truth have to reckon with the fact that the most documented chapter of her career was a documented lie. That tension does not resolve cleanly, and it is dishonest journalism to pretend it does. Camp 3. The platforms are the real problem. There is a third perspective that is less visible in fan discourse, but arguably the most analytically honest. The platforms that repeatedly hand Powell a microphone are equally complicit in the culture she represents. DJ Academics has hosted her multiple times across different eras of her career, including the session where she made her famous fake pregnancy confession on stream. Vlad TV, No Jumper, Hollywood Unlocked. All of these platforms have profited measurably from her controversies. They generate traffic, they produce ad revenue. They do so without bearing any of the reputational or personal consequences that fall on the individuals she discusses. Equally important, these platforms set the table. They invite her, they ask the questions, they run the clips, they promote the episodes. If a platform repeatedly features a guest whose content has been documented as false on at least one major occasion, that platform is making a deliberate editorial choice. The idea that they are passive conduits for her stories rather than active participants in amplifying them for profit does not hold up under scrutiny. The ecosystem that rewards controversy with reach, regardless of truth or verification, is larger than Celenia Powl. She is a product of it, not the sole creator of it. Let me break this down properly because this is where the story moves beyond gossip into something with genuine cultural weight. Truth 1. Fame without traditional talent is real and sustainable. She has 3.3 million followers, an active subscription platform generating documented income. Nearly 10 years of continuous cultural relevance without a single song, film credit, or conventional entertainment output. In the attention economy that governs digital media in 2025, controversy is a valid form of content. Proximity to power is a form of content. She has proven that these things alone, managed with enough consistency and fearlessness, can sustain a personal brand across platform shifts, public failures, and sustained cultural backlash. This is not a compliment. It is an observation about how media ecosystems currently function and a direct challenge to how the industry thinks about celebrity, value, and accountability. If someone can build a 3.3 million follower platform on a documented lie and multiple unverified claims, the system producing that outcome deserves examination. Truth 2. Hip-hop's infidelity culture has a real and documented price. The men who appear in Powell's stories are not random choices. They are among the most visible, commercially successful, and publicly celebrated artists in the genre. Many of them were in committed public relationships at the time of her alleged encounters. The cultural norm in certain circles of hip-hop that treats infidelity as a status symbol, or at minimum as something to be expected and kept quiet, is directly connected to the environment Powell has operated in and extracted value from. She did not create that culture. Nevertheless, she studied it, understood its mechanics, and extracted value from it consistently across nearly a decade. The culture handed her the vulnerability. She used it. Truth 3. The legal system has structural limitations here. Offset's team called her behavior a $50,000 extortion attempt. Waka Flocka obtained a restraining order. Lawsuits have been connected to her public statements at various points across her career. Despite all of this, no criminal conviction, no sustained legal consequence meaningful enough to alter the trajectory of what she does. Part of this is about the nature of the claims themselves. Posting on social media, making public statements, appearing on podcasts, and making allegations, even demonstrably false ones, is protected expression in most legal contexts. The bar for defamation is particularly high for public figures. The reputational cost of a sustained public legal battle often exceeds the cost of silence for the men involved, which means the legal deterrent that should theoretically exist largely does not function in practice. That structural gap, minimal legal consequences, enormous public attention, has sustained her career through multiple cycles and multiple controversies. Truth 4. The women in these situations are the consistent collateral damage. This point does not receive enough attention in the public conversation. Cardi B was carrying her first child while a fabricated pregnancy story was running about her partner simultaneously. Snoop's wife, Shantae, a woman who has been with him since high school, through every chapter of his extraordinary and complicated public life, had her marriage publicly questioned by millions of people, based on claims that have never been independently verified. Summer Walker was dragged directly into the Lil Meech situation without any direct involvement of her own. The women in relationships with the men Powl targets consistently absorb the most personal damage from these situations. They are not the ones who made the choices that created the situations. Just as importantly, they are largely absent from the public conversation in a way that reflects a broader cultural failure, one that centers the famous men and the woman making claims while the actual partners process real private damage largely in silence. That absence from the conversation is itself a story worth telling. The hip-hop media ecosystem covers Powell's claims extensively. It covers the rapper's responses or non-responses extensively. It rarely centers the women who are living through the fallout of choices they had no part in making. Truth 5. She understands the game better than most people want to admit. Celenia Powl is not a passive character in this story. She is not someone to whom events simply happen. She is someone who studied a specific cultural environment, identified its structural vulnerabilities, developed a strategy around those vulnerabilities, and refined that strategy across nearly 10 years of operation through public failures, admitted lies, legal pressure, and constant cultural backlash. The 2018 fake pregnancy confession would have ended most public careers. She made a YouTube video out of it and gained subscribers. The restraining order from Waka Flocka would have discouraged most people from continuing. She escalated to Snoop Dogg. Being publicly called a clout chaser by one of the most followed accounts in hip-hop would give most people pause. She leveraged the increased name recognition. Whether you respect what she does or find it ethically indefensible, and there are serious documented reasons to land firmly in the latter camp, her understanding of how attention, virality, and digital economies function is genuinely sophisticated. That is not flattery. That is an accurate assessment of someone who has remained relevant in an environment that discards figures far more conventionally talented than she is, regularly and without ceremony. As of early 2026, Celenia Powl remains active on social media with a following that continues to grow. The Offset saga that first built her national name back in 2017 appears to be ongoing, an almost absurd reality that speaks simultaneously to her persistence and to the continuing willingness of the men in her orbit to re-engage with her despite full knowledge of her history. She declared publicly in January 2026 that she would never again involve herself with a rapper. Based on everything documented in this video, the pattern, the cycle, the consistent return, you can form your own judgment on how permanent that declaration is likely to prove. The men connected to her story have had varied outcomes. Offset is navigating one of the most publicly complicated post-divorce situations in hip-hop history, with legal and financial disputes that have remained in the headlines well into 2026. Lil Meech's image took a significant documented hit from the audio leak, with real questions raised about the future of BMF and his professional trajectory. Waka Flocka, who pursued legal protection early and decisively, has largely stayed clear of her orbit ever since, and is notably absent from the list of men who keep reappearing in her story. Snoop Dogg has maintained his brand and public standing throughout every chapter of this saga. Drake, who closed the door cleanly in the chat itself, remains among the most commercially dominant artists in music today. Not long after the Offset bed video circulated, reports emerged through DJ Academic's platform of Powell's close friend Jordy appearing on a live stream and detailing additional context around the Offset situation, claiming Powell had been involved with Offset while Jordy herself was dating Offset's assistant and alleging that Offset had engineered the circumstances. Those claims added another layer to an already complicated story, and again raised questions about how many people in these situations are being used for purposes they do not fully understand until after the fact. The platforms that amplified Powell at every stage, Vlad TV, No Jumper, DJ Academics, continue to operate, continue to profit, and continue to shape how these stories are told and who gets to tell them. None of them have faced meaningful consequence for their role in the cycle. That fact is as much a part of the story as anything Powell has ever posted. So what is Celenia Powell's actual legacy in hip-hop? That depends entirely on which frame you apply to the story. If you tell it as the story of a woman who lied, manipulated, and repeatedly exploited famous men for clout and income, the legacy reads as a cautionary tale, a case study in how dishonesty, when pursued aggressively and consistently enough across enough years, can generate a real platform and real income in the current media environment. A warning about what happens when the attention economy rewards behavior, regardless of its truth or its human cost. If you tell it as the story of a woman who found the one genuine crack in hip-hop's cultural armor, the industry's long-standing culture of private infidelity, the consistent unwillingness of powerful men to be publicly accountable for private choices, and exploited that crack with precision and fearlessness across a decade, the legacy becomes something considerably more complicated, not admirable in method, not clean in execution, but something that holds a mirror up to a culture that does not particularly enjoy looking at its own reflection. The truth, as it almost always does, lives somewhere between both of those frames. What is not in dispute? She changed the conversation around groupie culture, celebrity infidelity, and the attention economy in hip-hop in ways that are still actively being felt in 2026. She forced public figures at the highest levels to respond to her. She forced established platforms to cover her. She forced millions of fans to argue about her. She did all of it from a phone, with no label, no management, no publicist, and no conventional leverage whatsoever. That is some wild stuff. No cap. Yo, if you made it this far, you already know this is one of those stories that does not wrap up clean. There is no verdict, no dramatic final ruling. No moment where the music swells and someone learns a lesson on camera. Just a pattern that keeps repeating, because the system that created it keeps rewarding it. The men keep making the same choices. The platforms keep running the clips. The internet keeps arguing about whether she is a villain, a symptom, or something the culture produced and does not quite know how to reckon with. What I will say before we close is this. The most important question this story raises is not really about Celenia Powell specifically. It is about what hip-hop culture enables, rewards, and quietly protects, and about who gets to define accountability within it when nobody is holding a mic or a camera. She did not invent the environment she operates in. She just figured out how to profit from it more consistently and more durably than almost anyone else has. The men who keep walking into her orbit, with full knowledge of her history, full knowledge of her track record, full access to years of documented evidence about exactly what happens when you enter her world, keep making that possible. That choice belongs to them. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this a calculated operation from day one, or did she build it as she went? Did some of these men create the exact situations they ended up in? Or is the real story about the platforms that profit from all of it and have never been asked to answer for any of it? Let me know where you stand. If this hit different, you already know what to do. Subscribe. We cover the stories that go deeper than the headlines every time. I'm out.